That's probably the quicker way to do this.
Well, there's
So
no
not
other,
everybody's.
Public comment regarding items on this agenda may be submitted during the meeting by calling into an audio bridge conference call. The phone number is 985-276-6398. If busy, dial 346-248-7799 or 669-900-6833. The meeting ID is 828-1886-5968, and the participant ID password is 896-55044. Please specify the case number you are calling in for. And the way I handle the call-ins, if I've got 3 or 4 speaker cards that have already been turned in, I will put the person calling in after the speaker cards. In other words, it'll fall right in line. We had some folks at the last meeting that were a little bit upset that they didn't get recognized right off the bat. But that's the reason, is that we're trying to take these in order. So, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Seeger?
here,
Mr. Russ?
here,
Ms. McGinnis? Here. Mr. Willie?
here,
Mr. Richard?
here,
Mr. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Barcelona?
here,
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
here,
Mr. Crawford?
here,
Mr. Drum?
Here.
Mr. Randolph? Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Public announcements, please silence all phones on electronic devices. If you disagree with an item that this commission approves or disapproves, you have the right to appeal it to the council. There are appeal forms over on the right, on the railing over there. Speaker cards, if you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker card and give it to one of our staff, and they will get it up here to us. They are over on the right as well. Public speaking, 10 minutes each side and 5 minutes for rebuttal. After your case is heard, please exit the building. That way, if we have anyone out in the lobby area that would like to come in, they can. There'll be seats available, but it looks like we have a few open seats, which is good. Please rise for the invocation by Commissioner Randolph and the pledge by Commissioner Willie.
Our Father, once again, we thank you for your grace and mercy that you've executed upon each and every one of our lives. We thank you for this day. We thank you for this moment in time. Lord, we thank you for this commission. We thank you for our parish and our government employees, Lord. Bless them and bless this commission and bless those that are in the audience and those that we serve publicly. Lord, we ask that you continue to be with all of our political, civic, and community leaders, our military personnel, veterans, law enforcement officers, and medical personnel, and all that we do in our different vocations. Bless it in a mighty way. It's in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God save America. All right, in your packet was the August 11th meeting minutes. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. If there's any changes to be made, please advise. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Crawford. Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Russ,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Drum,
Yeah, boy.
Mr. Randolph,
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Request for postponement, staff, we have any?
Mr. Chairman, on page number 3, 2020,
On page number 3, under the preliminary 2020-2010 PP,
Which one? 2010?
Military Ridge.
Okay,
and also on page 4, 2020-2017 FP, final subdivision review.
okay.
That's it.
Has that got him? Jeff, you have anything that needs postponed?
No, sir, I just wanted to comment on the first case when you're ready, the preliminary subdivision.
Okay,
case.
all right.
Please.
All right, the first one that staff indicated needs to be postponed is 2020-2010-PP, Military Ridge Phase 1, developer owner Lynn Levy Land Company LLC, engineer surveyors J.V. Burks and Associates Incorporated, Parish Council District Representative Honorable Mike Smith. General location, the property is located on the east and west sides of North Military Road, Louisiana Highway 1090, north of Interstate 12, Slidell, Ward 8, District 9. Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent the owner and developer. We have been unable to complete all of the data that needs to be submitted to staff. We appreciate staff working up this report, but there's obviously some holes in the report that just require further efforts on our part. Some of that work has been impossible to obtain for getting the necessary traffic counts at times when you can't take the traffic counts. But we've spoken with DOTD. We think we might have a workable plan. I spoke with staff before the meeting. Hopefully my engineer will be speaking with them in the next few days. So we would appreciate consideration of a postponement for 1 month and hope to come back to you in October, and hopefully with a shorter list
Okay.
for preliminary.
I need to talk to you on that case, but I'll call you next week.
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a request to postpone this item. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Commissioner Randolph moved to postpone, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Russ,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Doherty,
Yes.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Drum,
Yes.
Mr. Randolph,
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
and Mr. Richard.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The second item that we have a request to postpone is 2020-2017-FP Preston Vineyard, developer owners First Horizon Incorporated, engineer surveyors McLean Taylor Incorporated, Parish Council District Representative Honorable Martha Casabon. General location, the property is located south of Louisiana 190, west of Louisiana Highway 1077, north of Interstate 12, Madisonville, Ward 1, District 3. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Maroon on behalf of First Horizon Incorporated. As you see from your staff report, we have a number of outstanding items on the punch list, items that we couldn't very well get completed before the meeting today. So we're asking for 30 days to be able to whittle that list down, get it much more manageable before we come back before you next month, at which time we hope to have everything in order and a cleaner report for you. So we request tabling for 30 days so we have that time.
Okay. Request by Mr. Morone, who's representing the developer, First Horizon, to postpone for 1 month. Any further discussion? Please vote.
We need a motion. We need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion, postpone for 1 month.
Motion by
Second.
Commissioner Fitzmaurice to postpone 1 month, and seconded by Commissioner Crawford. Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Rest,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Minister Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Drum,
Yes.
Mr. Randolph,
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We have no entering parish right-of-way, servitudes, easements, and Tammany Trace, no revocations, minor subdivision review. First item is 2020-1975 MSP, a minor subdivision of 15.79 acres into lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Owner and representative, Darling Design Homes Incorporated, Mr. Buddy Cope. Surveyor is Kelly McEwen Associates Incorporated. Parish Council District Representative is Honorable Marty Dean. General location, the property located on the west side of Louisiana 1077 and proposed Dessert Drive, south of Post Oak Drive, north of Gladys Road, Madisonville, Ward 1, District 1. This was postponed from the August 11th meeting. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create 5 lots from a 15.79 acre parcel. Note that the proposed lots 1 to 5 meet the maximum allowable density of 1 unit per acre under the A2 suburban zoning district. I'd like you to take a look at the revised survey that I just distributed a few minutes ago, as well as the revised staff reports, which illustrate the reason for the minor subdivision and the request for public hearing, and also the requested waiver. As you can see, Lot 5 is requested to be created as a flag lot and no longer with a servitude of passage. And it requires a waiver by of the regulation by the Planning Commission, because flag lots at this time in the ordinance are only permitted above the urban growth boundary line. And we also have the rear of Lot 1, 2, 3, and 4, which do not meet the minimum lot width of 150 feet, and it requires a waiver by the Planning Commission. So this minor subdivision should be subject to the 2 requested waiver, also the comments 1, 2, and 3, which number 2 is the approval of the road, which will be the portion of the flag, and it's requested to be named Lost Bayou Drive.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Palmer Design Homes and Mr. Coate. You'll recall last month when we requested that this matter be tabled, I indicated to you that we were working with staff on this flag lot issue. Mr. Liner was kind enough to take a question I had of him and send it on to the legal department so that they could look at the issue. We just got word back from them actually Friday or Saturday, and so that's why you see the changes so late coming to you. Originally, when we filed this request, we were accessing the rear lot, Lot 5, pursuant to a servitude. We had requested the ability, rather than accessing by a servitude, to allow us to extend ownership all the way up to Louisiana Highway 1077 with Lot 5. In some respects, it's the same, whether it's a servitude or ownership. and had the legal department come back with an opinion that we could not do a flag lot, then we would have proceeded with the servitude. The reason we requested the ownership is because, quite frankly, while I'm very comfortable with the servitude, there are a lot of people that don't understand it, and it causes them a little bit of confusion sometimes. And so we felt like if it was permissible to have ownership all the way up to the highway so that nobody has to worry about what the servitude means, what rights do I have, what rights do the underlying landowner have, we felt like it would be a cleaner approach. That's what you see on the plan before you this evening. Lot 5, rather than a servitude extending 35 feet up to Highway 1077, part of the lot itself extends all the way up. Because that 35-foot extension that gives us ownership to the highway doesn't meet the 150-foot width requirement, that's the need for one of the waivers that you see in your staff comments. So we would respectfully request that waiver. I don't believe that it creates any hardship. It's much the same as the servitude would be, but in my view, a bit cleaner. The other waiver is the rear of the lots 1 through 4. While all of them meet or exceed the frontage requirement on Highway 1077 and the size requirement, they're all over an acre. Because of the nature of the property and how the property narrows as you leave Highway 1077, the rear lots don't meet the 150-foot requirement. Because the frontage does, because the overall size is in excess of what's required, we believe that's a reasonable and appropriate request, and we would ask for your consideration in that regard. As far as the other 3 comments that Ms. Lambert noted, we will comply with all of those as written. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have, but we would respectfully request your approval of the minor subdivision with the flag lot and with the waivers as set forth in the staff comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor on this item? Anyone wish to speak against on this item? Seeing no one, I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve with both waivers.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve with both waivers.
Also with the approval of the name of the road?
Yes, and the conditions as well, yes.
Second.
Second by
Commissioner
Barcelona. Thank you. You were too quick there. I didn't see you with the mic. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger?
Yes.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Willie?
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph? Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried with waivers.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2020-1991-MSP, a minor subdivision of 15 acres being partial A1 into lots A1A and A1B. Owner and representatives Lloyd and and Stacy Smith Jr., surveyors J.V. Burks and Associates Incorporated, Parish Council District Representative Honorable James Davis. General location, parcel located on the east side of Morningstar Drive and on the west side of Ardon Rupert Road, Lacombe, Ward 7, District 7. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create 2 lots from a 15-acre parcel. Note that the proposed parcels A1A and A1B meet the maximum allowable density under the A2 suburban zoning district. Reason for the minor subdivision requiring public hearing is due to parcel A1 was previously part of a minor subdivision approved in 2015.
Thank you. Mr. and Ms. Smith here? I don't see Mr. and Ms. Smith. Anyone wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Mr.
familiar with
Crawford.
this area. I don't see a problem with this. especially since the lots are large enough. So I move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Crawford to approve, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Russ,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Drum,
Yes.
Mr. Randolph, Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-1996 MSP, a minor subdivision of parcels E1 and E2 into parcel E1A. Owner and representative Yakir Katz and Edith R. Ambrose. Surveyors J.V. Burks and Associates. Parish Council District Representative Honorable James Davis. General location, the parcel is located on the east side of North Pontchartrain Drive, south of Sunshine Lake Drive, Lacombe, Ward 7, District 7. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create one parcel from a 1.362 acre parcel identified as E1 and a 2.597 acre parcel identified as E2. Note that the proposed parcel E1A meets the maximum allowable density of 1 unit per acre under the A2. The minor subdivision requests require a public hearing due to parcel E1 and E2 were previously part of a minor subdivision approved in 2015 and also in 2017, and the request shall be also subject to the comments listed below 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. Mr. Katz or Ms. Ambrose, please come to the mic. Good evening. Do you have anything additional or any questions for staff?
No, I assume this is procedural stuff. We just trying to combine the two lots.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see if anyone else in the audience wishes to speak either for or against on this item. Seeing no one, I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments, 1, 2, and 3.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice, second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Russ,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Drum,
Yes.
Mr. Randolph, Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-2022 MSP, a minor subdivision of 100.387 acres, being parcel 1 into parcels 1A and 1B. Owner, Recreational District Number 1 of St. Tammany Parish. Representatives Jones Fussell LLP, Paul Morone. Surveyors Kelly J. McHugh and Associates, Parish Council District Honorable James Davis. General location, the parcel is located on the west side of Patricia P. Brewster's Safe Haven Parkway, Pelican Drive, and on the north side of US 190, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 7. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create two parcels from a 100.37 acre parcel, parcel 1 to be 45.391 acres, and parcel 1B to be 54.994 acres. The proposed parcels meet the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet required under the MD3 and the PF2 zoning districts. The minor subdivision requests require public hearing due to parcel 1 was previously part of a minor subdivision approved in 2015, and the request should be subject to the item listed below here, the comments 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Thank you. Mr. Morone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of Recreational District Number 1. This property was originally part of the tract that the parish acquired when it acquired the Southeastern Louisiana Hospital site. The original minor subdivision was done so that the neighbor, Pelican Park or Recreational District Number 1, could acquire some of that property. Now, the parish is looking to reacquire a smaller portion of that, so to buy back a small portion. This minor resub will allow that to take place. This will allow us to create the parcel that the district purchased from the parish, but is now going to convey back to the parish for some needs the parish might have. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The Board of Recreational District Number 1 is in support of this. My understanding is that the parish is interested in moving forward with that acquisition, so we're trying to facilitate that. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. We have a card, Mary Burchell. She's the Director of Safe Haven. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Like he said, my name is Mary Raquel, and I am the Director of Safe Haven. I just came to let y'all know how much the parish is interested in this piece of property. We've been trying to do this for many years, and an opportunity came around for us to use some grant funding for this purchase, and that's why we're able to do this now. There's some buildings on the property. We're looking to use those for veterans housing. That's one of the reasons why we're interested in it. Also, right now, the proposed Maniville bypass is along the side of Safe Haven campus, but Pelican Park owns all the land that abuts it. So this will give us an opportunity to have a second entrance and exit for the campus, because right now we only have one, and that gives us some safety issues. So that's the main interest we have it for the property right now.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Todd?
Mr. Chair, I just want to let the commission know I'll be abstaining from this vote. While I am no longer on Rec District 1 board, I recently and for many years have been on that board. And I'm very familiar with this project and what we're trying to accomplish both for the district and the parish. So I think based on my prior knowledge, the fact that I was on the board, I'm going to go abstain. I just want y'all to understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Nell?
Yes, I have a question for the previous speaker.
Ms. Bartow?
Correct.
Yes,
And I apologize for not remembering your name.
it's okay.
I'm just curious, and this is a little off topic, but just curious how the red-cockaded woodpeckers are doing at St. Haven.
They are doing very well. If you, I've actually saw my first one the other day when I was on campus. So I was really
Okay.
excited to actually see one. We do still have the yellow stripes indicating which trees are the protected trees. The red-headed woodpecker is actually an endangered species that we have on campus. We've had Wildlife and Fisheries come out again, and actually they're suggesting taking down not their trees, but a few to kind of clear it out a little bit, giving them some more space. But overall, their population's doing very well.
And also wanted to just mention to the commission and the audience that this area is adjacent to the newly approved Cane Bayou Mitigation Bank owned by St. Tammany Parish. And it's a really great project right there next to the campus. And it could be a place where the woodpeckers could extend their habitat once it's restored. So just want to make sure you were aware that that was there, since
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
new there. Okay, very good. Well, thank you.
Anything else now? Okay, any of the other commissioners have any comments? Seeing no one, please vote.
Mr. Seeger?
Yes.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Willie?
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph? Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All All right, the next item is 2020-2026-MSP, a minor subdivision to create a 412.5 acre as Partial A. Owner is Salmon Company LLC. Steve Rapier, President. Representatives Jones Fussell, Paul Marone. Surveyors J.V. Burks and Associates. Parish Council District Representatives Honorable Steve Stefancic. General location, the parcel located on the northwest intersection of Bel Air and Airport Road and on the east side of Journey Road, Slidell, Ward 9, District 11. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create two parcels, one of more or less 6,000 acres, and also parcel A, which is 412.5 acres. Note that the proposed parcels meet the maximum allowable density of 1 acre per unit, 1 unit per acre under the A2 suburban zoning district, and also the maximum allowable density under the other zoning districts throughout the 6,000 acre. The minor subdivision requests require a public hearing due to the parent property, so the 6,000 acre should be subdivided total more than 25 acres inside, and only the 412.5 acre residual parcel is being surveyed, as you can see on the attached survey. And it requires a waiver of the regulation by the Planning Commission since the site is located south of the urban growth boundary line. At this time, the request should be subject to the requested waiver and also to the comments listed here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Marone again, this time on behalf of the Salmon Company. This tract is part of the vast holdings that the Salmon Company has in this part of the parish, and the 412.5 acre parcel A is currently under contract to the city of Slidell. They had approached my client about acquiring that tract, and my client is willing to sell it. We had to create the parcel, if you will, to be able to do that, which gave rise to the need for the minor subdivision. The waiver, again, is a result of the fact that we're dealing with about 6,000 acres in residual property above the growth boundary line, where you typically have larger tracts with more acreage. There is not a requirement that you survey the entire remaining tract, just the parcel that you're selling. That doesn't apply below the growth boundary line. In this instance, though, to survey the additional 6,000 acres would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in working with staff on how do we deal with that, the issue of the waiver came up. So we would ask for your consideration to allow us to create parcel A, which on its own is over 400 acres, but without the need to survey the entire remaining tract of over 6,000 acres. No harm would come, I don't believe, to any parties. It's just a matter of the regulations and how it reads below the growth boundary line as opposed to north of the growth boundary line. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but we would respectfully request your approval of the J.V. Burks minor subdivision plat with the waiver as set forth in the staff comments, and we will comply with the other comments 1 through 5 that Ms. Lambert noted. We'll make those changes accordingly. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? Yes, sir. Come forward. And you're George Haas?
No, I'm Jimmy Harry.
Okay.
My card's over there.
Okay.
Okay, I live in Bel Air subdivision, and the reason they're subdividing this is so they can put a recreation park there at our subdivision. And about 5 or 6 years ago, the parish tried to do a Recreation 16 subdivision on this, and it got voted down. And most of the residents in Bel Air subdivision are opposed to putting a ballpark right up against our subdivision with the lights, the noise, the increased traffic. And from what I saw of one of the older plans, I don't know if it's the same, but they want to put a roundabout there, which is going to take away the entrance to our subdivision. And I'd like for y'all to tell them no, that they can't, put this ballpark right up against our subdivision and destroy our peace and quiet back there.
Okay, thank you. George Hawes?
Good evening. I'm George Haas. I live at 6416 Lauren Drive, Slidell, Louisiana. I also live in Bel Air. This parcel was decided to be a rec district and a ballpark. And the voters turned it down, like somewhere like 80% against 20% was again opposed to it. The residents of Bel Air are strictly against this. The traffic, it's hard to get in and out of Bel Air now because of the road. There's a ditch that they've tried to fix, a drainage ditch by the weather station. So the idea was to put a roundabout there, which would further impede our way of getting in and out of our subdivision. The park the entrance would be across from the weather station for this park, and it would come down behind the houses, which I happen to live one street over from it. And there's no buffer zone left there of trees, and the lights and the noise would be tremendous back up in there. There's more acreage across Airport Road out on Smith Boulevard that is better suited for this, but for some reason, when they wanted to start Rec District 16, they were going to put it there because they didn't like to put it off of Smith Boulevard there, or Expressway. I think what I'm asking here is not, if you don't want to just disapprove it, at least put in there, staff, for a public hearing and let the public know what's going on. Slidell doesn't own this lot. It's in St. Tammany Parish. So the next thing after it's sold, they're going to have to annex it. So once it's inside their city limits, there's no control of what's going to happen for the people that live back there. That's why I come up here today, because I was one of them that come up before when they started this, and the same thing. And I think a lot of people are not up here tonight is because of the COVID-19 and the limited seating. But if you talk to the neighbors back there, they do not want it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this, for or against? We'll go to rebuttal, Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. I quite frankly don't know what the city of Slidell is going to do with the property. I don't represent the city. I don't know anything about the rec district or a recreational park. What the gentleman said may be absolutely accurate. I just don't have any knowledge about that. But what I can tell you is that what we're here about tonight is not the use of the ground. I'm not asking you to change the zoning from what it is, which I believe is residential. I'm not asking you to do anything other than allow me to create a parcel that's over 400 acres in size. And I don't believe that there's anything that would prohibit that. Now, we are asking for a waiver so that we don't have to survey the entire 6,000, but as far as traffic, use, any of these issues, that's really not at issue this evening, respectfully. Not that I'm minimizing their concerns, but that's just not the basis upon which this hearing is being held. If the use is going to change, if it's going to be annexed, then the city of Slidell will have to go through the proper protocols to do all that. They'll have to have public hearings to do all that. But that's not really before you this evening. So I would ask for your consideration on the matter that's at issue, which is the minor re-subdivision to create the 412-acre parcel that you see as parcel A on your minor re-subdivision plat. And I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding the minor re-sub that I can, but we would ask for your consideration this evening accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. Yeah, let me see if these other folks In rebuttal, Mr. Harrod, do you have any further comments?
Yes, according to him, I was at the Slidell City Council meeting when they approved $100,000 to do testing on this site. And there's nobody gonna spend $100,000 and not go around and put this park in there. I don't know if he hadn't been really informed of what they wanna subdivide this for, but, you know, that's why.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hawes, do you have any further comment?
No, sir, Jimmy spoke. I'm satisfied with what Jimmy said.
Okay. Anyone else in the public wish to speak before I close it? All right, I'm gonna close it to the public, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Drum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know this area very well. I live just down Airport Road from here. And the city of Slidell has been trying for a very long time to get a hold of this property. And they have been wanting to put in some sort of recreational area there so they can annex it. Millage has already been denied for that area, and as soon as they annex it, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna try to annex the rest of Bel Air. There is a lot of open road, a lot of open fields on Smith Highway that they just opened up. If they want to spend a lot of money on a larger area that doesn't interfere with subdivisions, people's lives, privacy, they can, in my opinion, go the other way instead of destroying what is right now a very nice subdivision. And it will be a lot of lights. We have nothing from the city saying that they aren't gonna put lights. They're not gonna put in traffic. And the traffic on that airport road right now is livable, but if you start putting in a recreational center, I believe it's gonna disrupt it very badly. So I wish to make a motion to deny this property.
We have a motion by Commissioner Drum to deny.
I have a question for staff.
Yes.
The staff report says that the zoning districts are A2 and other zoning districts. What are the other zoning districts that are part of that parcel A?
You actually have a variety of zoning because the 6,000 acres extend, to the west. So you have, some commercial zoning, you have you have a different level of density of residential zoning from A4A to A4, A3, A2, A1. You have some industrial zoning, if I'm not mistaken. It extends quite far to the west of that parcel. So when I said a variety, it's almost every district. There might be another 10 different zoning districts within that 6,000 acres.
What about within the parcel A?
Just A2.
Okay. Any other question, Paul?
No, that answered my question.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Ken?
Yeah, so it's kind of a dilemma here because I could see where who controls the annexing?
Council?
The council?
Yeah.
So if the council said they didn't want to allow that to be annexed, it wouldn't be annexed?
We have annexation agreements we have to adhere to legally.
Okay, so.
Carlton, if the council voted not to approve the annexation, does that stop the annexation? No. Does not stop the annexation.
So once we break this parcel off, is what we're saying is Slidell could do exactly what they said they wanted to do. Is that correct, legal? Is that? They could annex it?
Yeah.
This doesn't have anything to do with the annexation. If I'm not mistaken, this is a minor subdivision. If the city wants to annex the property, they can do so, whether it's subdivided or not. It may be an issue of the size they were annexing. But right now, what you're talking about is not an annexation. You're talking about a subdivision.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick comment, and with all due respect to the concerns about whether or not somebody wants to put a rec district in there, ballparks, et cetera, that's not before us. I don't know what they're gonna do with this property. There's maybe some thoughts on it. But if it comes down to someone wants to change the use of that particular parcel, then it's gotta be rezoned, which means we have public hearings. And if we have public hearings, that's when all of these issues are addressed and we can vote for or against at that point in time. But this is a matter of just subdividing a large tract of land. That's all that's being presented to us today, and I don't understand why we're not considering just the issue that's being brought up. Thank you.
And that tract of land is all A2 currently, so it's
Right.
residential.
Right.
So I agree with Todd.
But it's.
Todd, if it's annexed by the city and the council does not approve the annexation, which could go either way, and if it goes against the annexation, what does the city do at that time? Do they go to court?
It depends on what the agreement is, but as Ross mentioned, we have annexation agreements in place, and so it depends on what that annexation agreement says, but the parish can't necessarily stop the annexation, it just may affect how taxes are split up, but it's complicated, basically, and really more than I can answer here. It depends a lot on what sales tax district they're in and what the agreement is. But again, it's not what's before you tonight. This board does not handle annexations.
Also, if it's if it goes through annexation, then the rezoning process will probably not go through the public hearings that we would hear, to go through the city of Slidell. But again, I agree with Todd and others that that's not what's before us tonight, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Nell?
just for clarification, I'd like to better understand where Smith Road is. If anybody can describe that.
It's right across the street from the golf course. It's a way they opened from Airport Road over to Highway 11. And from there, you can get to Highway 59.
Is it a new road?
Yeah, it's been open about 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Randall.
Commissioner Richard?
Randall.
It's the R.
It's the R.
Sorry about that.
To Ms. McGinnis, and to add to what Commissioner Jones said.
Is your mic on? Yeah?
Let's get it close. Let's be close.
Yeah.
Good. It's really called Dr. T.J. Smith Boulevard, and it actually runs east-west from Highway 11 to Airport Road. And it is basically another entranceway and an exitway, if you will, from Airport to, in lieu of going to the interstate. But it is not even, Kurt, not even 100 yards, maybe 200 yards from Bel Air subdivision.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? Todd?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the conditions, approve with the waiver, subject to the conditions outlined by staff.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Richard, second by, who's second? Commissioner Fitzmaurice. This is an interesting situation. There's a lot going on. There was a lot going on back when the parish attempted to put a recreation district in there, and I think part of the, and, you gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, that part of the reason for the failure is that it was tied to a parcel fee or a millage at that time too, which was not supported, which I certainly understand, as well as the traffic and so forth that would increase in this area. It's, I guess my concern, if it ever goes to active sale after we handle the minor subdivision, and the active sale goes to the city of Slidell, the parish of St. Tammany loses total control over this parcel. And at that point in time, the residents of Bel Air, whatever the city does with it, is going to be stuck with it. I really, and I understand what you're saying, and I understand what Bernie, I believe it was, said. It's just, I feel like unless we know, it gets back to sometimes changing zoning on a particular piece of property, unless we know the traffic and drainage, or have a little bit more information on it, it's difficult to support a zoning. And here, it's, in my mind, and for me, it's gonna be difficult to support this minor subdivision. So I'm gonna call for a vote and vote your conscience.
Chairman,
Yes,
is there a
Ross?
motion by Mr. Jerome?
He didn't have a
He
second.
didn't have a second.
No, I didn't have a
It
second.
would have taken precedent, but he didn't get a second. And since we're talking about waivers here, it's gonna require 8 votes in the affirmative for it to pass.
Please vote.
Mr. Seeger?
I want to make sure that, is this Mr. Drum's motion?
No.
No.
Then my vote is yes.
Mr. Ress?
Wait a minute, let me be sure
I'll restate the motion. It was motion to approve with the waivers, subject to the conditions that were outlined by staff.
okay, Kirk, you made a motion,
Yes, nobody seconded. So
nobody seconded.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're voting on the motion that Todd put on the floor.
Correct.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Does he have a second?
Mr. Ress?
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not real comfortable with what I feel is gonna happen here. I think the residents are right on, but I feel like my hands are tied on this. That's what I don't like, because I do feel like they probably got it figured out pretty close to what's going on. But I don't know that's us. What they're asking for here is just to survey, break off a piece of property here. The end intent, we don't control at this point. But I don't like it, but I have to agree that yes is probably the vote that needs to go down. So I'm yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Willie?
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
I'd just like to say, I agree with Ken. It's a tough one, but I'd have to lean on the city of Slidell to have public hearings and do the right thing if it did go in that direction. So from a parcel standpoint, I'd vote yes.
Mr. Drum?
No.
Mr. Randolph?
I'd like to say also before I make my vote that there are two things in my view and opinion that I'm hearing from both the residents and from what we know, and as well stated by my fellow commissioners. This purview and this projection of what could happen, I am confident that the city of Slidell has the same type of process we have, that if there's a change in any zoning or anything with the property, It will be publicly advertised, and the residents will have an option and an opportunity to voice your opinion about it. And the other side of it is that, hey, this is something that we are not necessarily voting on tonight. It's just the piece of property that's still A2. City will have its vote on it, and the people will be able to address it at that time. So I vote yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
No.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. All right, next item is re-subdivision review. Re-subdivision of lots 14A and 16A, map file number 2902B, and lots 15A and 17A, map file number 3507F, into lots lot 14A1, 16A1, 17A1, Phase 4B, Clipper Estates. Owner and representative, Vela Development LLC, Peter Tefero. Surveyor is J.V. Berkson Associates. Parish Council District Representative, Honorable Jake Airy. General location, this property is located on the east side of Vela Cove, east of Cutter Cove, Slidell, Ward 9, District 13. Staff?
The objective of the request is to allow for the attached survey dated August 13, 2020, to correct the previously recorded surveys. And to get a full understanding, I'd like to invite you, if possible, to put the 3 surveys in front of you. If you look at the first or the oldest survey that was recorded in 2003, you see that the objective was to create 14A, 16A, and 17. In 2004, another survey was submitted to create 15A and 17A, and if you notice, Lot 14 was not included, or 14A was not included in that re-subdivision. And also when 17A was created, well, there's currently a 20-foot drainage servitude that is crossing through 17A, making Lot 17A, not a buildable lot. So the owner is coming back to us, or coming back to you, the commission, and asking for approval of the new survey, which will become 14A1, 16A1, and 17A, which will allow construction of 3 residences, and it corrects the previously approved survey.
Thank you. Mr. Tefero, good evening.
Good evening. I'm here today to see if we can correct something that was done in the past. We are not creating any more lots. We're not creating any less lots. We're just shifting the lots, 1 lot towards the lake. There were 5 consecutive lots that were re-subdivided, and we are just shifting them to allow this drainage servitude to be on a lot line rather than on the edge of a lot. We feel that that lot could be used, but it would be impaired greatly having drainage servitude coming through a portion of it 40 feet from the end.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor? Anyone wish to speak against? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Seeger to approve, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger?
Yes.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Willie?
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, 2010 was postponed, so the next item is 2020-2011-PP, Lakeshore Villages, Phase 6, developer owner D.R. Horton Incorporated Gulf Coast, engineer surveyors, the Atlantis Design Group, PC, Parish Council District Representative, Honorable Jake Airy. General location, the property is located north of Oak Harbor Boulevard, west of Louisiana 433, east of Interstate 10, Slidell, Ward 9, District 13. Staff?
Yes, sir. The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office, and an inspection was made of the site on August 27, 2020. Planning Commission approval shall be subject to the following items being addressed. Number 1, a waiver of the minimum driveway requirement is being requested for lots referenced below and as outlined on the attached driveway waiver summary exhibit. It's for lots 1276, 1277, 1288, 1289, 1311, 1345, 1346, 1358, 1394, 1395, 1434, 1435, 1471, 1472, and 1505. Number 2, the proposed 3-inch asphalt pavement section being proposed in this phase of Lakeshore Villages has not been approved and is still being evaluated for this phase. 3, the water and sewer plans need to be updated to ensure that the maximum spacing of 500 feet between fire hydrants is not exceeded. 4, provide written plan approval from Oak Harbor East Utilities for this phase of Lakeshore Villages. A letter of no objection regarding the water and sewer improvements needs to be issued on behalf of the Department of Environmental Services for this phase of Lakeshore Villages. LDH approval for this phase of Lakeshore Villages is required. No funded maintenance obligation is required since this is a community development district owned and maintained by the subdivision. And there's no mandatory developmental fee since this had a public hearing held prior to January 1st, 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent D.R. Horton, Inc., Gulf Coast, the owner and developer of Phase 6 that seeks preliminary subdivision approval. In specific response to the 4 comments that staff has just read to you, with regard to the driveway waivers, hopefully you have the exhibit and letter that my client submitted. And it should be obvious that if we did not allow these waivers to occur, the side loading would create the driveways to actually enter or open into Delta Ridge Avenue, which is not a stopped street, if you will. The intersecting streets that these corner lots are on all have stop signs, which obviously make it safer, in our view, or very safe for these particular driveways to enter into those intersecting streets. If you'll look at the exhibit, you'll see that the driveways themselves are well marked, they're dark shaded. They're as far away from Delta Ridge as possible. We've also given you a table that indicates the number of feet that each drive is from the intersection. And I believe that the shortest distance, if you will, from back of curb is slightly in excess of 39 feet. Most of the others are much closer to the 45 to 60 foot requirement that you have. So we respectfully request the driveway waivers for the lots in question. If there are any other corner lots, we will be able to accommodate those with side load without putting that into the Delta Ridge Avenue. With regard to comment 2, we have a state licensed geotech that put this pavement section together as per the parish's ordinance. And as we've done in a prior phase, we will make additional calculations, address these comments, and submit it to staff. So we're in accord that that item needs to be worked out with staff. As it relates to comment 3, additional fire hydrants have been added to the plans. We will prepare an exhibit that will show compliance with the 500-foot spacing, and again submit and coordinate this with staff to make sure that this item is properly addressed. And then comment 4, our plans have been supplied to Oak Harbor East Utility for their review and approval, and this will, of course, be submitted to staff once again before we are able to get a work order in that regard. So with those responses, we respectfully request that you grant preliminary subdivision approval, and in particular that you grant the waiver as it relates to item 1, which of course requires 2/3 vote by the commission. If any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to address them at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I got a comment, you can bet. Jeff would be disappointed if I didn't, probably. This is kind of what it's been building up to month after month with these waivers on these driveways. This reaches a whole new limit of, let me understand something here. The ordinance states, if I'm not mistaken, that the distance is from the intersecting road, not from the curb. Is that correct? Is that what the ordinance says? Okay, so we've already, each time we grant one of these, we always have to add in this other thing. We're not even getting close to what the ordinance says. If you look at the list of these, most of them don't even, 1288 comes close, 56.8. I mean, I could argue a little bit, something like that. 1310 makes it easy. 1357, but the rest of these aren't even close, a lot of them anyway. Not all of them, a lot of them aren't even close. And to me, it's design. There's no reason for the developer to develop this any different as long as we keep granting the amount of waivers we're granting for these driveways. And this is just lot sizes in the end, and how many lots you gotta have, or how many you wanna have. There are ways that these don't have to be there, and you don't have to go out on the main road. I understand that. I don't think the comment about not wanting people to pull out on that main drive is a bad comment. I don't disagree at all. But maybe it's the numbers of lots we're trying to squeeze into this property. If the lots are a little wider, there may be less lots, but the driveways aren't so close. That's not our charge, I don't feel. I don't feel our charge is to design it. Our charge is to help support what the ordinances say. And every time we do this, and I've kind of thought, why do we have this ordinance? And the more I've thought about it, it's about traffic turning down a road and having enough time to stop if a car is backing out of a driveway. I would bet that's what the driver is on this, that it's about somebody coming off that main road and turning, and all of a sudden there's a car backing, and if landscaping or anything else blocked their view, there's got to be enough time for them to stop. So we can wait until somebody's backing out of their driveway and they get hit by a car and the kids are in the car and all that if we like, or we can just invoke the ordinance. And so I vote, I don't have a problem with the design, but I have a problem with all the waivers.
Okay, thank you. Any of the commissioners have any other comments? No?
Mr. Shane,
No.
Mr. Shane. I know we've asked this before, but there's a levee around the entire Lakeshore Villages, correct?
Yes.
And what storm level is that constructed to? It's my understanding it's a 100-year storm event?
Yes, my engineer's saying yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Shane?
While I'm here, may I?
Yeah.
I appreciate Commissioner Russ's comments. And, you know, it's even awkward for me as a presenter to discuss this issue. But there are a couple of things that we have talked about before. The rule is sort of hard and fast, irrespective of the width of the lots. And this PUD has varying width lots. So by definition, the PUD included 45 and 50-foot lots, which is what are the lot widths in this particular phase. So by definition, the corner lots can't meet the requirement. I know that all of you have heard discussion of the history of the 60-foot rule. And I don't profess to know the whole history. I'll just tell you what I have heard and learned. I don't think that anyone has a specific benchmark or reason as to why 60 feet was adopted. And it's my appreciation that the 60-foot rule is subject to revision, perhaps with some exceptions, if you will, if and when the code revision is put in place. But at the end of the day, I think the more important consideration should not be the width, but rather whether or not the proposed waiver seems to be the safest way in order for cars to access these particular lots. And typically, staff will express itself if it has a problem with the waiver in terms of whether they think it's inappropriate or whether there's a better way to do it. So side-loading these lots onto what I'll just call the thoroughfare, for lack of a better word, doesn't seem to be a better alternative. I do appreciate and understand that some might say, well, just design this phase differently. But remember that this subdivision is subject to a PUD that's probably, I think this PUD might be 15, Helen, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this PUD like 15 years old or something? 15 to 20 years old. And maybe someone may say, well, change the PUD. I understand that. But I do think at least you can understand that the developer bought a piece of property that had the PUD imposed on it. He now seeks to develop the property, and he's attempted to meet most phases. I would say the driveway waivers are usually 1, 2, 3, maybe sometimes 4 or 5 lots. If I'm mistaken, I apologize. This one does seem to be excessive, but I think, again, it's because of the nature of the beast, the size of the lots in this phase, and the intersecting streets. So, again, I would ask that you consider granting the waiver.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Paul, do you have a comment? I saw you picked the mic up.
Yeah, I do. It's a question for Mr. Shane. So Jeff, when the engineer submitted the request for the waiver, he is basically certifying that these distances will work design-wise, that design will work. An engineer is certifying that.
That's correct.
Now, the engineers looked at the design speeds on those roads. I'm assuming these are all local minor roads with limited traffic.
Correct.
So the engineer has considered that parameter. He's considered the speed limit on the roadways, which I'm assuming the speed limit would be like 20 miles an hour possibly.
I'm not sure, but yes, certainly a lesser speed limit than would be on the thoroughfare.
Okay.
And he's also taken into consideration these intersecting streets are stopped streets, so that you have stop signs literally in front of each of these lots where we're asking for a waiver. So I think if you look at it in terms of speed, whether you're accelerating, turning onto the street, or whether you're coming to a stop as you approach that stop sign, the speed should be very low.
Okay.
Okay. Any further comment, Paul?
No, sir.
Okay.
I have a comment, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, quick question, please. You just said that the streets had stop signs. Is that Delta Ridge Avenue, the main street, has stop signs at every cross street?
No, the intersecting streets.
Okay. So in essence, that does nothing for someone turning right off of Delta Ridge onto a side street. And I think that's what Ken was addressing.
Well, that's true, but I mean, I would assume that their speed should be relatively slow as they're turning, but you're correct.
I'd just like to make a comment. I don't know how I'm going to vote yet, but I'd like to make a comment that I agree with Ken. We've been looking at these things before. I don't know the history of the ordinance. I just know it's an ordinance. I know it's a design ordinance. I assume it has to do with public safety. It certainly seems like it when we look at the plot. In the past, we've missed 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet, and that seemed reasonable. But 29 feet when it's supposed to be 60 seems like we're pushing the boundary here. And we have to get away from that. We either have to fix the ordinance and find something that people can live with, or the developers have to just redesign some lots to make make some adjacent lots larger or something to make it work, because if it is a public safety thing and we waived that and willy-nilly and allowed 29 feet instead of 60, that seems like an improper thing to do.
Yes, sir, I understand your comment. I would just say, though, that, Duplantis Design Group will sign and stamp these plans, and I only assume, and I have to look to staff, that they do not object to the waiver from a safety standpoint, and because I do not see that comment to the contrary. It's an awkward situation, but again, I don't think it's one that puts safety at risk, and I believe that under the circumstances, the waiver is an appropriate opportunity or an appropriate thing for the commission to consider.
I understand. Let's ask the question. Staff, do you have a comment on that?
The proposed waivers is a safer option than them meeting the ordinance by having a side-loaded driveway onto the Delta Ridge Avenue, onto the main drag, as it is lower speed limits.
I certainly understand that. Okay.
So the question I'd have is, it's a safer alternative to what you've been given. Of the only two alternatives you've been given, is either they got to come out on that road or we got to approve the waiver. But if the design is different, then there is another option that hasn't been considered at all. And that's the lot sizes, so that you can have the distance. Is that impossible to do?
Mr. Chairman.
Dave, Ross.
Ross,
So I have a question that I'm asked Helen based on.
you got a
longevity.
microphone, Ross?
So my question is this: this particular development, as it states in the staff report, had their first public hearing prior to January 1st, 2005. So is this particular development designed, let's just say 18 years ago, where this ordinance wasn't in fact codified, so they have a development that was earlier than the ordinance itself?
This ordinance been in place for longer than I've been working here, so 25 years, maybe. I mean, I've been here for almost 22, so.
So, maybe I don't understand. This is an old development, an old PUD that was written. But each phase of it is designed independently, isn't it? For the size of the lots and everything that we're doing.
Each phase is designed independently, and if I'm not mistaken, if we would have caught it in the design part or earlier, then it would have been easier to state, well, we're not going to approve it, or you need to redesign. At this point, the design is.
So when would that have been? In tentative? Or is there that much detail that you're thinking about at that level? How do we keep these from happening? That's what I'm after.
Pretty much when it went through tentative, correct, Chris?
Should those questions be asked? What do you plan on doing with these lots? How are you going to load them?
That would be something to consider at the tentative. They come through with the original the preliminary plat, or the tentative plat. They should have they have a lot layout that kind of shows the distances and the lot sizes.
But they typically don't bring you that level of detail at that time, correct?
No, they do.
Oh, you
They provide you with the lot dimensions and the right-of-way distances.
But you're not thinking you're not thinking about the driveways at that time particularly, are you?
No, sir.
I would also I'd like to ask, add, Mr. Russ, is, in this situation, when it came through the PUD review, it was not designed to that level. Today, if they would be coming in, we would ask for the design of the entire subdivision. And, at that time in 2001 or around that same time, we did not ask for that level of details.
Okay.
Okay, any further question?
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. Just to Helen, just what we were talking about. So if this came through as preliminary now, this issue of driveways would get raised at that point?
It would actually get raised at the PUD level.
Okay.
At this time, when we have new subdivisions coming through, this is something that we do our best, and I'm not going to say that we'll never miss it, But we do our best to identify the corner lots and bring it up to the developer
Okay,
about the rules.
okay, fair enough.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
I've got a question. It has to do with the asphalt thickness, and Chris or Ted, this is probably in your ballgame. Seems like used to, you had a 2-inch asphalt base with it, then you had a 2-inch wear on it, and are they now going back to 3-inch asphalt?
The geotech proposes to utilize a 3-inch asphalt for sections of this phase, and we're still reviewing that and make sure it conforms to the ordinances.
I mean, all of these homes and all of these roads are going to be subject to garbage trucks. And if I'm not mistaken, just an empty truck's gonna weigh 40,000 pounds. And I'm not real sure that 3 inches of asphalt's going to be sufficient. And y'all have, since you're reviewing it, you have the option to require additional thickness of asphalt, right?
We've got minimum standards, but if we have a geotech that's adequate and sufficient and it addresses the ordinance requirements and the design requirements for general engineering standards, then the parish engineer can decide to allow the geotech report to carry the weight and utilize a lesser design if it meets all the requirements.
So you, at that point in time, engineering would be satisfied with the 3-inch thickness of asphalt?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have a comment, Mr. Shane?
Yes, sir. That approval for 3 inches with the geotech design, I think, was just done in phase 8. Preliminary. Huh? Seven? Excuse me, 7. I just wanted you to know that at least there's another phase, that after the calculations were provided, it was approved.
What is the geotech design? I want to show my ignorance here.
They take the soil borings, and they analyze the material type as far as the subgrade, and then they utilize the breakdown of the soil for their base and the type of base, whether it's soil cement or limestone, the compaction percentage, optimum moisture content, and they come up with a design based off the bearing capacity of the material and the compaction rate.
Okay. And, you know, if it comes down that you folks are satisfied with it, then I'll be satisfied with it. But I can remember the days of garbage trucks coming out of subdivisions and going into the old St. Tammany dump at 100,000 pounds, which, you know, that can't happen today, but, well, it can happen today, but I think the waste companies are being more concerned and not getting the trucks overloaded like they used to. So, yes, sir, Mr. Shane, any other comment?
Yes, sir. One other point, if I could, I'd like to amend the request with regard to the waivers. If everyone would look at their table, and I'm assuming you have the exhibit that we gave you with the table. We're gonna ask that lots 1289, which is the 4th lot down from the top, and also lot 1311, which is item 6. We're gonna remove those two from the waiver request. Those are obviously the shortest distances, and to the extent that that might create discomfort for some of the commission members, we will have to work something else out with those lots, meaning we're gonna have to figure that out on our own. So those are, it seems to me, so far from the norm, even if you look at back the curve, the 1289, again, produces 39.2
Jeff?
feet from back the curve.
Jeff, just a minute, we lost the mic out there. Rick? It just went dead.
1289.
Here comes the expert.
Okay, 13.
That'll do it.
Chinese batteries.
Hey, Paul, would you mind handing him your microphone while he's doing that? Thank you, appreciate that.
So again, in summary, from the waiver request, we would ask that lots 1289 and 1311 be deleted. If you look at the chart for the obvious reason. And hopefully that would make it more amenable. And I will tell you that I will get with my client, and as we come to you with future phases, we're going to see if we can't come to a better resolution on this issue. Because I understand the problem. You know I understand it. And I've got to try to figure out a solution. It is difficult with a PUD that's 20 years old or 18 to 20 years old, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. I hear the message from this commission.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shane. All right, any further discussion? Please vote.
We don't have a motion yet.
Oh, excuse me.
I move to approve with the amended waiver.
Motion by Paul to approve with the waivers. Do I have a second?
I'll begrudgingly second it.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Rest,
I really don't like it, but,
Well, no.
I see an attempt being made here, and what I guess I'm gonna have to understand for my part of it is, and I'll get with staff, I wanna know at what point we stop this from happening. And if it's when you walk in asking for a PUD and you lay out that initial drawing, or what point it is that I've gotta look at these lots and say, you just can't do it, and we'll go from there. I feel like that's gonna be, if it's not gonna, staff isn't gonna alert us in time to do something, then I'm gonna have to know how to do it. And so I'm gonna wanna know at that point, because as far as I'm concerned, if I never see another one, it won't be too soon. Because we've been talking about these forever. And so I'm gonna vote to approve this tonight. I guarantee you it isn't gonna get any easier for me as I go on. I can tell you, I am drawing the line in the sand tonight.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
That's it.
Commissioner Willie?
Yay.
Ms. McGinnis,
I'm going to vote no, but my reason, I understand the waiver issue, and I support Mr. Ress on that, but my no is the fact that we're only protecting these people as far as a 100-year flood event, and I don't think that's substantial enough.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm in total agreement with Mr. Ress. I appreciate Jeff that he's pulling out of the two lots. That certainly helps. And I understand the age of this PUD, so from a grandfathering type standpoint, I'll swallow it and go ahead and approve. But from now on, I hope we get a request at preliminary so we can have these discussions on other developments. So yes for me.
Okay.
Mr. Drum,
Yes.
Mr. Randolph,
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. All right, next item is 2020-2012-PP, Lakeshore Villages Phase 11, developer owner D.R. Horton Incorporated, Gulf Coast, engineer surveyor Duplantis Group, P.C., Parish Council District Representative Honorable Jake Airy. The property is located north of Oak Harbor Boulevard, west of Louisiana 433, east of Interstate 10, Slidell, Ward 9, District 13. Staff?
Yes, sir. The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office, and an inspection was made at the site on August 27, 2020. Planning Commission approval shall be subject to the following items being addressed. 1, the traffic impact analysis for Lakeshore Villages development needs to be updated to include new traffic counts for Phase 11 and approved by St. Timothy Parish and LADOTD. 2, the asphalt dimensions in the pavement legends and roadway typical sections have conflicting depths. Revised to eliminate this conflict. Be advised at this time the request for a 3-inch asphalt section has not been approved and is still being evaluated for this phase. 3, the water and sewer plans need to be updated to ensure that the maximum spacing of 500 feet between fire hydrants is not exceeded. Revise fire hydrant locations accordingly. 4, provide a water and sewer letter of capacity for this phase of Lakeshore Villages from Oak Harbor East Utilities. 5, provide written approval from Oak Harbor East Utilities for this phase of Lakeshore Villages. A letter of no objection regarding the water and sewer improvements needs to be issued on behalf of the Department of Environmental Services for this phase of Lakeshore Villages. Louisiana Department of Health approval for this phase of Lakeshore Villages is required. No funded maintenance obligation is required since this is a community development district owned and maintained subdivision. And no mandatory development fee is required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Thank you.
Mr. Shane.
Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, representing D.R. Horton, Inc., Gulf Coast, the owner and the developer. With regard to comment 1, the TIA has been updated and submitted to the appropriate authorities for approval. And once those approval letters are forthcoming, we will share those and provide those to staff. Item 2, with regard to the asphalt dimensions, my comments would be the same as they were with regard to the last phase. Item 3, with regard to the fire hydrants, they have been added again, similar to the comments of the last phase. We'll put an exhibit together and share that with staff. Item 4, capacity letters have been requested and upon receipt will be provided to staff. Number 5, plans will be supplied to Oak Harbor East Utility for their review and approval. And at the appropriate time, we'll supply those letters to staff as well. Happy to report no driveway waivers.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, subject to staff comments, seconded by Commissioner Randolph. Any further discussions? I got a question, Jeff, and maybe I'm just blind and can't see it. Where does DOTD get involved in this? I don't see where there's an intersection to a state highway on this particular phase.
Well, staff and or my engineer can correct me, but the scope of this project is such that there was an agreement made on the front end.
15 years ago?
No, but probably 4 or 5, 3, 4 or 5, that as the lot count in the development reached certain thresholds, that certain requirements would be needed, irrespective of whether or not a particular phase intersected a state highway, et cetera. So there's a master plan, if you will, that's out there. And you'll remember, was it last month or month before, that I made a presentation to you about some, for tentative as it relates to some traffic improvements for this development. So this is in accord with what had been envisioned. And so the state and the parish, as well as, of course, our engineer, confer. But ultimately, we understand that we have to have approvals from the state and your staff as well.
Okay, well, I just know how rapidly DOTD moves on some of these things, and if it was not absolutely necessary, then we could go on. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger?
Yes.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
No.
Pardon?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Willie?
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is 2020-2014-PP, Beatico Creek Parcel 10, developer owners Beatico Creek Preserve LLC. Engineer is Kelly McHugh Associates. Parcel District representatives, Honorable Marty Dean. General location, the property is located on the northwest side of Louisiana Highway 1085, south of I-12. Madisonville, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
Yes, sir. The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office. An inspection was made of the site on August 28th, 2020. Planning Commission approval shall be subject to the following items being addressed. 1, the latest PUD plan states maximum allowable lot frontage is 90 feet. All lots conflicting need to be revised. 2, revised servitude between lots 979 and 980 on the preliminary plat to match the drainage servitude and ditch layout shown on the proposed drainage plan. 3, provide profile drawings showing all centerline street grades and ditch bottom grades required for preliminary approval. 4, provide multiple proposed cross-sections including dimensions, elevations, and side slopes for Lake Number 4 through the abutting lots. Informational items. Applicant must submit a revised PUD plan to the planning department showing an update to bubble number 3. Beatico Creek master drainage plan needs to be updated to reflect the revised bubble configurations in the former bubble number 3, bubble 4S, and bubble 4N. No funded maintenance obligation is required since this is an extension of a private subdivision. No mandatory development fee is required since the public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Members of the commission, Paul Marone on behalf of Beatico Creek Preserve LLC for Beatico Creek Parcel 10. We are in accord with all the staff comments, and we'll make those changes with regards to the PUD. There was some erroneous language, erroneous on our part on the PUD plan that talked about maximum and minimum lot size that really was inconsistent with what the lots have been laid out. So we've worked with Aaron, and we will make those revisions accordingly so that there are no conflicts there going forward. We'll comply with items 2 through 4 as well as all of the informational items. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have at the appropriate time, but we would respectfully request preliminary approval for Beatico Creek Parcel 10 in accordance with the staff's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. I have a card here from Shelby Simpson, wishes to speak on other. That's a good way to put it.
It was really against, but I didn't want to be too harsh, so. My name's Shelby Simpson, so I live in lot 324, which if you look at the plot, I'm the very northeast, furthest northeast corner lot there. I have parcel D10, the drainage area behind my house. And one of the things, I had talked to Beatico Creek Management, and they let me know as part of the drainage plan, they were planning to put a culvert in that open ditch that is currently there right now. And currently, that ditch, after every severe, thunderstorm that we have, the conservation area next to it actually drains into that open top ditch, as well as that little tiny triangle parcel behind my lot. And I've got, numerous photos, of that. And my concern is if they do put a culvert as part of that drainage plan in that parcel D10, it is going to cause our neighborhood, Deer Park, that cul-de-sac, to actually backfill and not have anywhere to drain and start flooding our homes. So as you can see, many photos, it overflows the culvert during rainstorms, as well as that back lot. You can see erosion, from the water there as well. So I would like to formally ask, a more detailed analysis, especially concerning that conservation area and how it affects the drainage, as well as on their map. I know they identified a lot of live oak trees. That's not all the live oak trees that are actually in parcel 10. There are some that are a few hundred yards behind our home and our lot kind of southwest of there that are in fact greater than 6 inches. So I'd like to see those identified and see if there's any sort of protection plan, as part of that, as well as all of the current lots on this map that have the live oaks marked. Those actually hold water after rainstorms right now, so they're going to have to bring those up to grade, obviously, for foundations and things of that nature. And if you put more than 6 inches of soil on exposed roots, you're potentially going to lose all of those live oak trees, which are numerous in that area as well. And then the last thing I would like to cover, there are old maps of our neighborhood and their development plan, and I may have missed it because I moved in after 2005, that show that as an actual conservation area, at least a piece of it being a conservation area, whereas now the updated maps show that it is for future development, which is what we're talking about right now. You know, when we bought our lot, that was the pretense we were under, as well as a lot of other people, you know, with green space biome. So those are the things I just wanted to cover. Like I said, you know, if there's some sort of delay to do a more detailed assessment of all the live oak trees that 100+ years old, potentially in that area, as well as a drainage assessment for that back lot D10 where I'm at as well. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wish to speak against? Yes, sir. Please fill out a speaker card.
That's what I should have. My name is Robert Economides. I live in Beatico Creek on Cypress Crossing Drive. I've been living there since 2015. We recently had a lot of flooding issues on my street. I was about 3 houses down from flooding. This property is actually very close to where I live. I can see the trees where all this huge oak grove is. And the first thing I'm worried about is flooding, and that we're gonna flood more. While I've been living there for 5 years, we've been trapped in a subdivision 3 times and not been able to get out at all. There's only one entrance and 1 exit. So by getting rid and piling more dirt on top of where all these beautiful oak trees are to begin with, and the rest of the property that are majority pine trees, this is gonna cause that no longer to be drainage. And my house will flood the next time. My other question about this is that we've already had so many approved parcels in here that the land has not been developed. It's pretty much just been cleared and got rid of all the trees, and now it's just overgrown brush. How many lots do we have to have approved in this subdivision that aren't being built on and keep approving more and more and more subdivisions inside of our neighborhood? Let's see, the oak trees, we have actually went out and measured several of them. They are between 10 and 12 feet in diameter, which is also part of this tear down. And according to section 130, 1973, procedures for attaining landscape, any tree that's larger than 6 inches should fall into this. And the other thing, just on a note about this development, he's given over the entire subdivision to the HOA. He keeps building subdivisions in the back, tearing up all the roads to our houses, and then charging us to fix them. He keeps building right now there's probably 200 lots under construction and new streets going in. And we're getting fined every time it floods. Not fined, I'm sorry, a special assessment to pay extra money for the damage that he's causing. Pretty much that's right. We've also had other residents text me because I was coming here, but we've also asked this group who's taken over the HOA, it's only the developer that's the head of this HOA. We've asked them for financials and where our money's going. Several people have asked this and no one has been given an answer. So it's like he's taking our money, doing whatever he wants with it. They're also the only HOA in the entire parish that's not registered on the website. And there's over 500 houses on this website, in this neighborhood. So
Okay,
I'm against it.
all right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against on this? Yes, sir. If you haven't completed the speaker card, please do so.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I did fill a card out, so you guys can give me one, I'd fill that out for you. My name's Glenn Mace. I also live in Beatico. I've been here about 2 years, not as long as these gentlemen. And since 2018, I've seen 3 events where we've had flooding issues. So I'm here today just to ask you to pump the brakes, take a look. He's right. There's at least 100 lots for sale right now that don't have anything on them. I mean, I don't know what's the rush to get these other lots cleared. I'm sure they're more expensive lots maybe, but I really think we need to take a look at the drainage. Our subdivision drains into the Beatico Creek, as I'm sure you guys know. And like I said, in these 3 events, I have them documented, and I have pictures to show where Beatico Creek was topped over, and it was just a matter of a couple more inches before we'd have some major flooding like we did in May of this year. So that's all I want to say. All right? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Glenn Grosh. I live in Beatico Creek at Lot 310, which is just it's kind of catty-corner to where these new lots will be going in. And basically to piggyback on everything else that they said was, we've been flooding a lot, and one way in, one way out the neighborhood, adding more homes, more people to get blocked in. Also, that parcel of land right there is where the main waterway that was created by the flood was kind of flowing through right there. And if you look at lot number 768, which is right on the bottom right corner of it, that house actually flooded in the flood. So taking away all that waterway and then the drainage that Shelby was talking about is basically right there where this parcel of land is going to be cleared out and homes added. So not sure where the water would run from there, you know. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please fill out a card. You got it? Okay. Turn it in to staff. Just bring it up and. I'm sorry?
He'll give rebuttal in a minute.
He said he wants to say one more thing.
They'll have rebuttal in a second.
Okay, come on back up.
There's also 9 to 10 lawsuits that are currently in place against the developer because of the drainage problems, because of not keeping the drainage cleaned out. And I just wanted to add that to my statement, that there are currently, I know 9, but I think there are a couple more in the subdivision that are against the developer for the way that the water flows in the subdivision.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Mr. Brown, rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few follow-up comments. First off, I mean, any issues related to the HOA, not before us this evening. The issues with regards to the oak trees, as you all know, there are ordinances in place that deal with the oak trees. We have to identify the oak trees. We have to have the oak trees inspected by staff. They have to be roped off or fenced off. There is a very, very detailed set of rules and regulations that go into dealing with any oak trees. So we are subject to that. As far as a detailed drainage analysis, well, that's what we had to do to get to preliminary this evening. We had to take this parcel, we had to do a detailed engineering analysis, we had to present that to your staff of engineers, they had to review it, and your comments tell you that they have reviewed that and that we are in compliance. So what does that require us to do with regards to parcel 10? It requires us to engineer parcel 10 to make sure that we can meet the requirements of St. Tammany Parish, which is a 25% reduction on a 100-year storm event. We've got to reduce the runoff in its post-development condition by 25% from its pre-development condition. All those are the rules that are in place. Those are the rules that we have to live by. And those are the rules that we are living by. And that's what your staff comments tell you. With regards to the culvert at D10, I can't speak to that specifically, but I'm happy to go back to my engineer and have him look at that and to provide information on that. What our intent is to meet your ordinance, but to provide a safe development. Now, the rains that we had in May, over 15 inches fell in that very short period of time. That was a catastrophic event. And the fact that there was water in Beatico Creek and all along the western end of St. Tammany Parish is regrettable, but it's a fact. It's a fact. But I will tell you that this development has been engineered and continues to be engineered each phase to meet and or exceed, and in many instances exceed, the requirements of St. Tammany Parish. And what does that tell us? Well, the requirements of St. Tammany Parish are not perfect, but I will tell you that they are some of the strictest requirements in all the state of Louisiana. So, again, are they perfect? No. However, we all have to live by certain standards. We have certain rules that we are subject to. And I'm not up here tonight asking you to waive those rules. I'm asking you to approve the preliminary subdivision approval for parcel 10 because it meets your rules. In addition, with regards to why do we need more lots and all this, I would remind you that Beatico Creek subdivision was approved decades ago. These bubbles and these sites are already approved. We are moving through that development, and we are complying with the PUD and the plans that have been approved before us. So whether or not we need lots or not, the developer believes that there is a need for lots in that area. And we have a tentative approval for parcel 10. We're asking for preliminary approval in accordance with your regulations. I would be happy to talk with any of the residents. I'd be happy to check into with our engineer on D10. I'm happy to have dialogue with them. But as for parcel 10 and preliminary approval this evening, tonight, I ask you to look at your staff comments. We will comply with each of those, of which there are 4. And I believe that we have done what's necessary to be able to garner preliminary approval this evening. But I'll be happy to answer any additional questions that any of the commissioners might have about any of these issues. And we thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Morone. The gentlemen, all the folks that spoke against this, we're in a rebuttal phase. If you wish to speak and rebut anything that Mr. Morone has said or just said, please come forward.
Thank you. I'm just going to say that like I said, I have the 3 dates where we had issues in the neighborhood, and I'm not blaming the subdivision, because he's right. I mean, that's why I purchased my house there, my home there 2 years ago, because I felt it looked like it was well engineered. But there is an issue there today. May proved that, and I have an incident every year. We have an incident, and it's getting worse each time. So May, all I'm saying is that we had an issue in May, and it's only going to get worse. We have 11 houses, I think that's the correct number, that flooded. And there was hundreds of houses who came very close. So again, no fault of anybody, but there is an issue, and unless you want to have 900 people flooded in this area in the next year or so, keep on developing it, because that's what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, come forward.
To talk on having the staff and the developer in the neighborhood go through and mark out all the trees and not tear down those trees. We had a problem with that in the past, where they were supposed to be along I-12. There was a buffer of pine trees that was supposed to be there, and the contractor that came in and started tearing down for the new homes that were going to be built tore down hundreds of feet of pine trees that was along the back of the neighborhood. So then you didn't have that buffer anymore, and you can see from the back streets of the neighborhood straight to I-12. You could hear I-12. And what they did was they just came back and planted some more trees. So I guess in about 10 to 15 years, we'll have our buffer back. But that was part of the developers, contractors that came through there. They knew where they were supposed to cut down. They cut down a little bit too much. So what's to stop them from doing the same thing in this area? Even though the staff marked those trees not to be cut down, they get cut down just because they're back there developing. Who's to say, like, what's going to happen now? It's, oh, we cut them down. You know, so there is, the staff can go and mark the trees, but what's stopping them from accidentally cutting them down or accidentally doing things like they do right now in the neighborhood, like messing up the roads with all the big trucks that come back there, and they've turned the roads over to us now, so we actually have to pay for the roads to get repaired. The developer loans us money to pay the road, to fix the roads that he destroys. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
So last year there was an LDEQ evaluation done on this subdivision, and the evaluation was about this thick, and that the violations that they were having. They were sent to the HOA and they were dealt with, and then recently they've changed it to where now the developers are responsible. Developers of each lot are now responsible for everything, so that they don't have to enforce it. I have a guy that lives across the street from me that is part of Shell Environmental, and went through and made claims to the Louisiana DQ, and they came out and looked at everything. Many of those violations have since been fixed, but it just keeps happening over and over again. All these lots, there's red clay all over the roads. All the lakes are full with red clay. And it's not being taken care of. All they care about is selling more lots and not taking care of the ones that are already there. If this was the case, they wouldn't be charging us for the streets and charging us to clean out the drainage that's not even owned by the HOA.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
If I can leave it one thing here tonight, following the flood in May, I'm still waiting for the engineering report to come back on what improvements need to be made following the flood. I haven't seen that. There is some issues we have with the HOA, but I'm not gonna get into that tonight because that's not your problem. But I did send an email to our president's office following the flood, and I got a response back from Laura, OJEDA. I don't know who that is. Maybe you guys can help me with that. She's the executive secretary. And basically what I asked for was, I just wanted to know if someone was looking into the problem that happened in May. I'm used to, you guys or someone in the government doing that. She told me that because I lived in a gated community, that wasn't, it wasn't you guys' problem. It wasn't the parish's problem. That I should take it up with the Department of Transportation, who owns Highway 1085. Now, I don't know about all that. Who owns what highway? Something going on here?
No, that's.
One more time? So what I'd like to leave with tonight is, who can I speak to that can help us with this issue? Because it's not only the drainage in the subdivision, it's the water that's leaving the subdivision into Beatico Creek and down, I guess, down 1085. I'm new to the area. I don't know where that water all goes to, but I can tell you on the 3 occasions I've witnessed that creek overfilled. So when it overfills, the water's not going anywhere. That's common sense. But 1085, does the ditches need to be cleaned out? I mean, I don't know. So when I leave here tonight, is there someone I can speak to and work with? I have lots of time, lots of energy, and I'd like to work with somebody to see what we can do to maybe help that drainage in that entire area. I know it was a 50-year flood or 100-year flood. We had 15 inches of rain, but again, it happened 3 times in 2 years that I've been here. And that's it, I'm finished, thanks.
Thank you. All right, time is up on rebuttal. I'm gonna close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Marone.
Okay, Paul?
Paul, for the subdivision, has a drainage detention pond been designed to control the stormwater runoff from the subdivision?
Yeah,
Is that part of the development?
Yes, there are ponds that have been designed and constructed all throughout the development.
Okay, so the intention is to have those ponds in place to control the stormwater runoff?
That's correct, to be able to meet the requirement of reducing the
development.
runoff from the stormwater. That's correct.
Second question, has a traffic study been
Yes.
submitted and approved by the parish?
Yes. Yes, we've had a traffic study done. It's been a while. We had one done earlier on that took into the account the entire development. There will be a need to update that at a trigger in the future, I believe. But there's a study that's been done and a hydrological analysis that's been done for the drainage and for the traffic.
Okay, as far as the update to the traffic study, at what point will that be updated?
Don't recall that there was a trigger once we reached a certain threshold in the development that it would be redone. I forget if it was 70 or 75%. I don't recall the exact number, but we have not approached that yet.
So when that study is updated, there could be some items to mitigate at that point that
there could be,
mitigate
yes.
any
There could be, depending on what the
impacts?
study says. That's correct. That's correct.
But you won't know until that study is updated?
Correct.
Okay. Any further questions or comments by the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Nell?
I have a question for the staff right now. Could you comment on how you address subdivisions that have repeated flooding problems, but they're a multi-phase subdivision or PUD?
Kind of put me on the spot here.
Yes, sir.
Um,
And I've asked you questions like this before on previous projects, and it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up.
So, the way the ordinance is written is it's bound by the 100-year flood event. That is what we, in general engineering, when they look at flood requirements and building requirements, they utilize the 100-year storm event. 100-year 24-hour rainfall is 12.6 inches for our region. All right, we had 15 or 16 inches of rain in that area on the May 14th, May 15th. So it exceeded the 100-year storm design that is generally used. So areas that flood, if it's in public works maintenance system, then they'll kind of go out and they'll look at it, see what can be done to improve it. Something like this was a phased approach. This has a master drainage study that accounts for the 100-year storm event. And I believe most of the ponds are actually in place at this time.
Do we ever ask the developers, yes, this is what's minimum required, but would you consider doing more because you've got problems in your subdivision? This just seems insane that we keep hearing residents with these problems, and yet we keep doing the same thing.
To answer, and we do on occasion require the developers to do more. We have the ability to go above and beyond. But to require them to design for like the 500-year flood event as opposed to a 100-year, it's not really a general approach utilized in engineering and in different areas.
What about a safety issue where you have repeated times where people cannot exit or enter the subdivision? That seems like a huge safety issue.
So again, it's one where I don't know, when you say you can't get in or out, if are we talking about 3 inches of water? Are we talking about 8 inches of water? Is it something that's restricting emergency vehicles?
Well, I remember in the May event, hearing it on the news that residents were trapped.
There were 24 inches of water at the entrance. We could not leave.
You would think that, an ambulance couldn't get in or out if it was needed. 3 days? I just want to make the point, and Mr. Marone, I would like to ask, would this developer consider making this subdivision better than it is? It is not sufficient to do it as planned if you're continuing along the same path.
Okay, so may I respond?
And I know you don't want to be
No.
representing
Right.
a poorly developed subdivision.
Right. Well,
What
first,
can we do?
okay, let me respond to some of that. First, I would take exception that it's a poorly designed subdivision, because I don't believe that it is. So, the first time any home in Beatico Creek took water since 2004 or 2005, when it was built, was in this flood event in May. That was the first time that water has ever gotten into a home there. When we talk about meeting the minimum requirements, this development exceeds those already. We put these ponds in way before any houses were in. We have excess capacity already there. The water that we're talking about at the front of this development, do you know why that water is there? That water is there because Beatico Creek backs up. Do you know why Beatico Creek backs up? Ms. McGinnis does. It's because it hasn't been desnagged or cleaned out. That's exactly why. Until we can get in and desnag and clean up these drainage ways in St. Tammany Parish, you're going to have problems like this. That's not my developer's problem. That's not your problem. And to the gentleman that asked, who can he talk to? The state of Louisiana would be a great place to start. Because I can tell you, that is a major problem that we have in this parish with drainage. Because we can collect our water and we can hold our water, and we can meet the 25% reduction on a 100-year storm event. We can go beyond that, and we do in this development. Where we have problems, and you can talk to Red Thompson, you can talk to people that have been here a long time. The problem is that because of state and federal regulations, we cannot get in. When I say we, I mean us and you, the parish. We cannot get in to clean out these drainways. And so we can design all kind of things, and we do that. However, until you can get the water out and clean those drainways out, when you have 15 inches or 20 inches in a 24-hour span, as Mr. Tissue said, well beyond a 100-year storm event, you're going to have issues, unfortunately. So what can we do? We can all collectively have one voice that tells the federal government and the state government that you've got to let us get in these drainways to be able to clean them out and desnag them.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is my suggestion. And I think that would go a long way to addressing a whole lot of ills that we have in St. Tammany Parish because of our gravity drainage system. And I will say this, it's a good point, thank you. I will say this about that. Since this, the event in May, the developer has procured a right-of-way to give an alternative exit from the subdivision, ingress and egress to the subdivision when these events occur. So he went out and acquired that from an adjoining landowner, which was not in place fully, it's a long story, when the May event occurred, but that now has been done, that servitude has been executed and has been recorded with the clerk of court.
Thank you. All right. Any
I'd like
commissioners?
to follow up with some comment.
Okay.
I respect everyone's time tonight, but I will say, I don't want to leave it on that note, that St. Tammany's flat, poorly drained. If you start dredging excessively our streams, you cause, and this is from hydrologic experts, you cause down cutting of these streams, you cause bank sloughing, so you have excess siltation. So eventually your stream does not even hold as much water as it did before you channelized. So that is, it visually looks like it's going to do great, but it doesn't in the long run, and it is not the solution, and the experts will tell you that. I do also want to comment to the resident that said they need a drainage study on the conservation areas. I just want to state that the conservation areas are part of the wetland mitigation that was done for this project, and you would have to check with the Corps of Engineers on what the permit says, and also to the resident who said that they changed where the conservation area used to be. That would be on the Corps permit as well, so I would try to track that down with the regulatory department, with the Corps. And one last thing with staff, again, I know we look at siltation in developments and sediment that is, it's not replanted with grass and kept, you have your sediment fences. Is there an issue there to have so much red clay in the lakes as reported? I just wondered if you had any comment on that, and I'm also wondered if you're aware of what this DEQ report is that they reported.
I'm not aware of the DEQ report that they are referencing. In regards to this siltation and red clay being on site or coming off site, just about every one of these subdivisions are larger than 5 acres, so it requires a federal SWIP plan. They're required to maintain their silt fence, their hay bales. If they've got sediment coming off site, they're required to maintain or repair. They're required to go above and beyond. There's a significant amount of material coming off site, and
Right,
the contractor is responsible for that.
But do we not have staff that checks up on that?
We have a subdivision inspector, and if he notices that, he will put the contractor on notice.
Okay,
We've got an MS4 program in place, so if somebody calls and complains about it, we follow up on it.
okay,
Yeah, we do what we can with the staff we have available.
okay.
Any other comments? All right, any other comments from any of the commissioners? We have a motion and a second, no motion and a second, okay? I need a motion and a second in order to move
I
forward.
move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Seeger to approve.
Second.
Didn't have any waivers, no?
No.
Okay. Did I hear a second? Second by Commissioner Willis. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Russ,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
No,
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
No.
Mr. Drum,
No.
I'm sorry. Mr. Drum?
I said no.
Okay, thank you, sorry,
sorry.
couldn't hear you. Mr. Randolph,
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty,
Yes,
motion carried.
thank you. All right,
Mr. Chairman, just a
Did
second
that-
before we pass.
did that get
Go on to
passed?
the next thing here.
did that
Paul,
pass?
if you would, these people have, these are the kind of concerns we just keep hearing over and over again. And I know you've heard them as, more than I have probably. And just to pass on to the developer, if you would, just ask them to make sure they are doing everything they possibly can to avoid. They may be already, but I know where these folks, you all know, we all know, we've all seen it, we've all heard it, and I just feel like, sometimes we feel like, what can we do to help them? Because I feel like just stymied, an ability to help people when I know these things are happening also. Sometimes it's an act of nature and that's just what it is, and we can't do anything. But there are things that I've seen driving through subdivisions that tell me that there is silt running off in places and there aren't the precautions always. They're not vegetated in the ditches like they should be. And I drive through them too, so I know that it is happening. And so all I would ask you to do is make sure that your developer gets the word and tries to do. And the staff is limited what they can do. They've got X amount of people to cover the parish.
I will certainly do that. I took detailed notes, and I intend to pass them along to the developer and the engineer for just that reason.
Thank you.
Our developer in HOA has cut off communication to over half the neighborhood or everything. We're not even allowed to talk to them unless we call the guy.
What you guys can do is stop telling people they don't need flood insurance as a selling point when you buy a house.
All right, thank you all. The motion to approve did pass. Next item and final subdivision review is 2020-1970-FP, River Club Estates, Phase 2A. Developer owners, River Club Development LLC. Engineer surveyors, Kelly McHugh and Associates Incorporated. Parish Council District Representatives, Honorable Marty Dean. General location is located on the property is located south of River Chase Drive and Brewster Road, west of adjoining the Chifuncta River, Covington, Ward 1, District 1. This was postponed at the August 11th meeting. Staff?
Yes, sir. Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and a confirmation final inspection was made on August 31st, 2020. The inspection disclosed that all the concrete roads and road shoulders are constructed, but the road shoulders and roadside ditches need to be vegetated. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of the final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. 1, riprap or a crushed stone splash pad needs to be installed at the end of the 30-foot temporary ditch servitude between lots number 123 and 124 in accordance with the provided drainage plan. 2, all drainage ditches, roadside ditches, and swales need to be properly vegetated for this phase of River Club. 3, provide clear water tests for the new water lines installed in association with this phase of River Club. 4, provide a letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer systems from the utility provider. Informational items. Should the planning commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,436 linear feet at a rate of $25 per linear foot for a total of $35,900 for a period of 2 years. Mandatory developmental fees are required as follows. A road impact fee at $1,077 per lot for 24 lots for a total of $25,848. A drainage impact fee at $1,114 per lot for 24 lots for a total of $26,736. These fees are due before subdivision plats can be signed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. On behalf of River Club Development, LLC, for Phase 2A of River Club, there were two items that were left to be completed. That was the hydro seeding of the ditches and the roadside shoulders, all of which I confirmed with Mr. Humbacher of Larry Lloyd Construction are completed. Also, the riprap at lots 123 and 124 is done and installed. So all of the field work is completed. We are waiting on Utilities, Inc. of Louisiana, who is our utility provider, for the letter of acceptance. They were trying to power up the lift station just to make sure that it ran properly, but we expect to have that any day. As with the water tests, those tests were taken, and we've requested those. We're just waiting for those to come back. But other than that, we would respectfully request your approval of final, subject to the staff comments and your staff confirming that those two field items are completed.
Thank you, Mr. Morone.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Paul, yeah. Paul? They got verification of 911 address is still pending. Has that been taken care of?
I know that we sent in the information on that. I don't know if that's come back to Mr. McHugh's office or not. I don't know what the delay would be.
COVID? That's just my guess.
I don't know. I don't know of any. I'm not aware of any issues there. So I'm not sure. I don't know if Mr. Tissue has any.
Just point of
Chris,
information.
you have a comment?
It's not a staff comment at this time because the developer has submitted to 911. We're just awaiting verification from 911 at this time, which is why it's underneath the informational item section.
Okay, I'm gonna ask, Paul, developer, to follow up on that.
We'll do that, certainly, yes.
Okay. All right, any further comments, any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger?
Yes.
Mr. Russ?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Willie?
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you. Next item is, on page 4, 2020-2013-FP, Lakeshore Villages Phase 8A, developer owner D.R. Horton, Gulf Coast, engineer surveyor, the Planis Design Group, PC, Parish Council District Representative Honorable Jake Airy. General location, the property is located north of Oak Harbor Boulevard, west of Louisiana 433, east of Interstate 10 and Slidell, Ward 9, District 13. Staff?
Yes, sir. Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on August 27th, 2020. The inspection disclosed that all the asphalt roads are constructed and the subsurface drainage is functioning. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of the final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. Number 1, the streets throughout this phase of Lakeshore Villages need to be cleaned so a meaningful inspection can be made. 2, repair all cracks and reestablish any washouts associated with the sidewalk in this phase of Lakeshore Villages. 3, straighten all crooked signage as needed throughout this phase of Lakeshore Villages. 4, install blue reflectors in the vicinity of the hydrants where missing. 5, overhead power lines remaining along Lakeshore Village East are in conflict with the proposed home locations and are not located within a dedicated servitude. Provide clarification regarding the plans for these power lines. 6, need asphalt test results for Ross River Drive, First Lake Drive, and Cypress Branch Drive. 7, provide as-built elevations at all property corners and on all green space parcels. 8, show drainage arrows on all lots and green space parcels. 9, revise the drainage arrows on the as-built paving and drainage plan to show split lot drainage for lots with a drainage canal located along the rear of the lot. 10, as-built information for the sewer lift station and sewer force main that services this phase of Lakeshore Villages needs to be provided. 11, provide a water and sewer capacity letter from Oak Harbor East Utility for this phase of Lakeshore Villages. 12, provide a letter of acceptance for the water and sewer infrastructure associated with this phase of Lakeshore Villages. Informational items. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 4,768 linear feet at $22 per linear foot for a total of $104,896 for a period of 2 years. And no mandatory developmental fees are required since the public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, representing D.R. Horton, Inc., Gulf Coast. In response to staff comments with regard to item 1, the streets either have been or are in the process of being cleaned accordingly. Number 2, we are getting ready to pour sidewalks and ramps in the remainder of phase 3, and at that time, when we make those pours, we'll take care of the sidewalk repairs as mentioned in this comment. Number 3, with regard to signage, we only noted one sign that was crooked or not inappropriate, I guess, configuration, but when we again go through that phase, we'll check all the signs to make sure that all of them are straight. Item 4, blue reflectors were initially installed at all hydrants. Perhaps through the cleaning of the roads and or through construction, some of those reflectors have disappeared. We understand we've got to go back and reinstall, and we will take care of that. Number 5, the overhead power lines are actually temporary lines that were provided to provide power to the Phase 3A sewer lift station. CLECO is currently installing conduit and pulling wire along Lakeshore Village East in order to get power from a permanent source through the conduit to this particular lift station. So once that power is turned on through the underground system, the overhead power poles will be removed. Item 6, additional asphalt test results have been requested and provided as per staff comment. Item 7, this information is already in the 3D surface file from the surveyor, so we will add labels to the locations on our plans as requested by staff. Item 8, the arrows will be added accordingly. Item 9, the arrows will be adjusted accordingly. Item 10, the sewer lift station and sewer force main from this lift station that services this phase is already constructed. However, CLECO is still working on getting power for this lift station in order for it to be turned on. So once the sewer lift station and force main have this permanent power from CLECO, we understand that the water and sewer plan sheets need to be updated to reflect that as-built condition. Item 11, the letter has been requested from Oak Harbor East Utility and will be provided to staff when produced. Item 12, Oak Harbor East Utility has been to Phase 8A to inspect the water and sewer in order for it to be accepted and turned over to their system. So we're just waiting for that letter of approval from the utility provider. In light of these comments, we respectfully request that you grant final subdivision approval for Phase 8A, but subject to all staff comments until staff is satisfied with everything that we've produced.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this? Seeing no one, I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Crawford. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Russ,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice,
Yes.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Drum,
Yes.
Mr. Randolph,
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona,
Yes.
Mr. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Doherty.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, amendments to chapter 125 subdivision regulations, we have none. Amendment to developmental agreements, we have none. Old business, entering parish rights of way servitudes easement, withdrawn. Has this been withdrawn,
Yes, sir.
staff?
Yes, sir, that item was withdrawn.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to the, let me read that into the record, that way we do have it officially withdrawn. Request to enter the parish right-of-way of Line Street for the purpose of gaining access to property, Tammany Terrace subdivision, resolution number 18-046. The debtor is Tammany Trace LLC. Mr. Craig Seals, Parish Council District Representative, Honorable David Fitzgerald. General location, the property is located east of Lee Road, Louisiana Highway 437, west of Louisiana Highway 1081, north of Interstate 12, Covington, Ward 3, District 2, requesting a waiver for the location of the water valve at the intersection of Kenny Lane and Eldora Avenue. This was, the developer requested this be withdrawn, or?
No, upon review of the ordinance and the requirements, staff withdrew it as it could just be approved by engineering because it was underneath
Okay.
underneath
All
3
right.
square feet in size.
All right, thank you. Versailles Business Park, Phase 2. This is 2017-825 PP. Developer owners Dobbins Group, engineer surveyors Duplantis Group, Duplantis Design Group PC. Parish Council District Representative Honorable Riker Toledano. General location, the property is located south of Holiday Boulevard, west of Louisiana 190, north of Interstate 12, Covington, Ward 3, District 5. This is to establish a warranty obligation. Staff?
Yes, sir. A warranty obligation, the amount of $16,875, which is calculated at 675 linear feet and at $25 per linear foot for a period of 2 years. It needs to be established by the Planning Commission. This obligation will cover roadway infrastructure and drainage improvements associated with the Versailles Business Park roadway extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here representing the Dobbins Group? Good evening.
Hey, good evening. My name is Jason Reibert with Gulf States Construction Services. I'm here tonight on behalf of TDG North Shore LLC. As staff has mentioned, the case in front of the commission this evening is for a 2-year warranty obligation to be established for the recently constructed Versailles Business Parkway roadway. This is being done in conjunction with an upcoming dedication to the parish, which I understand from parish staff an ordinance has been drafted for introduction at the October Parish Council meeting. TDG North Shore has no objections to the obligation as stated and is ready to post the obligation at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to take any action on this? Yes?
Motion to approve the.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve, second by Commissioner Randolph. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Mr. Seeger,
Yes.
Mr. Russ,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Willie,
Yay.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Yes.
Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Drum?
Yes.
Mr. Randolph?
Yes.
Mr. Barcelona?
Yes.
Mr. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Doherty?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Please fill out a speaker card too. All right, new business, we have none. Do we have an adjournment?
So moved.
Thank y'all, I appreciate it. We are adjourned.
It's only 8:35. Okay, now.